Good morning or good afternoon, whatever coast you may be on. Thank you for joining us today for a Fireside Chat with Workshops for Warriors and Mastercam. My name is Keisha Javis-Jones. I am the Director of Operations here at Workshops for Warriors. As you may know, Workshops for Warriors is the only nonprofit school in the nation that trains, certifies, and places veterans into advanced manufacturing careers across the nation. Today, you will join our CEO and founder, Hernán Luis y Prado, and Meghan West from Mastercam as they discuss some of the challenges throughout the nation in manufacturing and their leadership experiences with advanced manufacturing. A few housekeeping rules for today's event. Today, the chat will go for about 40 minutes. There is a Q&A box at the bottom if you have questions that arise that you would like to ask Meghan or Hernán during the course of the 40-minute conversation. Please ask all questions there. If you have comments or things that you would like to add to everyone's discussion, please use the chat feature. Again, your questions and comments there will go directly to everyone that is on this webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our CEO and founder, Hernán Luis y Prado, combat veteran of both Iraq and Afghanistan, so he can share with you his passion and why he started Workshops for Warriors and its important mission to our nation, sustainability in manufacturing. Hernán, over to you.
Thank you, Keisha, and for our guests. I really appreciate you being here today. And thank you, Meghan, one of our on our board of directors for a long time, and a friend of Workshops for Warriors since the very, very beginning. So I wanted to thank you. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Workshops for Warriors, as Keisha said, we are the nation's only nonprofit school that's accredited, and we provide accelerated advanced manufacturing training, nationally recognized credentials and placement for veterans into advanced manufacturing skills and jobs in machining, welding, fabrication, robotics, and 3D printing, most of them using Meghan's software program, which is Mastercam, probably the #1 used Mastercam or computer-aided manufacturing software in the world today. We've had great experience using it for the last 13 years, and we're looking forward to using it for the foreseeable future. But for those of you that are not aware of it, we've had over 720,000 unfilled jobs in America due to lack of skilled labor. And that number is rising to almost 2.1 million over 2030. So if you think about it, in 10 years, who's going to build our ships, our buildings, and our future? And what I'd like to share with you is with people like Meghan, who have been very generous with their time, talent, and treasure. We are training veterans to be the vanguard for America's manufacturing force. And I'd like to ask Meghan, how she found out about Workshops and a little bit about her. So Meghan, please. How did you start? Tell me what happened with Mastercam, how you got to where you are today, please.
Sure. And thank you so much for having me, Hernán. It's so good to see you. I know we usually have in the past gotten to see each other a few times a year, but obviously with the situation globally, there hasn't been much travel. So it's really great to get a chance to see you. I always get so excited to talk about Workshops for Warriors, to have a chance to connect. Because it truly has been kind of part of me and my career from the beginning of my introduction into manufacturing on a full-time basis. So my name is Meghan West. I am the president and CEO of CNC Software, and we are the makers of Mastercam. And as Hernán mentioned, we are the most widely used CAM system in the world. And we are located in Tallinn, Connecticut. So our headquarters are here in the USA. We've been around for the last 38 years. And really our passion and our purpose from the very beginning is the same that it is today, and that's to create tool paths that drive CNC machine tools. Our mission is to create software and services that solve the world's manufacturing challenges. And we've got plenty of manufacturing challenges here at home. And so, it's always been a really great industry for us to be involved in. I'm always so passionate about manufacturing here in the United States. And so my first interaction with Workshops for Warriors was I think it was probably 11 or 12 years ago. I know we've been connected for a little bit longer. Our director of education at the time heard about Workshops and understood that it solved a big problem. And it's funny, I remember going to a seminar, an educational seminar again, it was probably 12 years ago. And everybody in the room acknowledged and agreed that there was a skills gap issue, that there were not enough skilled workers to fill the open manufacturing jobs. And, we all talked about the problem, but I noticed no one really talked about a solution. And then I remember at the time, it was Dan Newby. He introduced me to Hernán and Workshops for Warriors. And I thought, oh my goodness, here's a solution. Here's someone that's actually doing something about the issue. And so it was a really easy choice for me, for Mastercam, for CNC Software to get involved. And I couldn't be more humbled to be connected to it. I mean, Hernán, you guys do the heavy lifting. We're just happy to be able to support the initiative and do what we can, because truly it solves two problems with one stone here. It figures out a way to be able to transition veterans into civilian life and be able to have a career, and it helps to funnel skilled workers into the manufacturing industry, which are so desperately needed.
One of the things that I'm really grateful to Meghan and CNC Software is there are so many people, like you said, that just talk about it. And as you know, my wife, Rachel, is a survey methodologist and statistician, overall, data nerd. And if you look at it just by the numbers, Workshops for Warriors, since 2008, we've grown 350 times our original footprint. We have almost 1,000 graduates in our program that are placed in full-time jobs in companies like Boeing, SpaceX, Tesla. These are companies that use your product. And the only complaint we ever get is, how do we get more people? And I'm so grateful to you, because when we first started out, when we had 0 graduates, because we didn't have someone like you, I remember that we were struggling and everyone kept saying the same thing. We need people, we need people. And there were all these kind of sub-tier cam manufacturers that would say, well, we want to help, but they didn't offer anything substantive. And I remember going to Dan and to you and saying, look, I really need your help. And what we're doing is going to be in the best interest of America. And to your credit, you didn't even hesitate. And maybe it's your East Coast upbringing, but you have been such a true patriot and American. And I say that in an apolitical way. You've been such a patriot because you really did something selfless to help our nation. And we have 1,000 graduates that are in full-time jobs in America. And I think I told you one of our last board meetings that the impact is so crucial, because if you don't see the students, you don't see what a huge impact it is. We take honorably discharged, competent, capable men and women that have served, that have this amazing talent for, team activities and bringing your company forward, but they don't have the right skill set, right? And America loves veterans. However, American companies need machinists, welders, fabricators, computer designers. So we provide these accelerated training programs that are 16 weeks long to train veterans into either machining programs, welding programs, robotics programs, 3D printing programs, or machinery repair. And it's worked so well, thanks to you. And I was wondering, what would you tell your colleagues out there that want to do something substantive, that want to help rebuild America?
Well, I mean, I think this is, for me, Workshops, as I said, it was an easy choice to support. I mean, it has the right approach. It's solving the right problems. And, it's always been interesting to me. I have had an opportunity to meet some of the students and hear some of the stories about how Workshops for Warrior has changed their lives. And I've interacted with so many people in the last, decade that have been in manufacturing, and how it's funny. It's such a mutually beneficial industry where, employees help us and we help them. It's just kind of this back and forth. And I've met so many people that say manufacturing has changed their lives, people that didn't have a career, didn't know how to support their families. And at the end of the day, that's what we all have to do, right? We have to find a way to support ourselves, to support our families. And if that can also coincide with being able to support the American economy and the manufacturing industry, I mean, it's such a win-win. And I guess I look at it as everybody has to take ownership of the problem. It's so easy to identify the problem. It's harder to take that next step. But if we all took ownership of it and we all did our part to find ways to improve, the number of people in the manufacturing industry, we would be a lot further along than we are today. And so for me, Workshop for Warriors, like I said, was doing the heavy lifting. You guys already had a process in place and a passion and a mission. We just we were here to help fuel that.
I really appreciate that. And I think for the people that don't know about Workshops for Warriors and why we started it, like I said before, I was in the Navy for 15 years and I loved the Navy. I did combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I enjoyed every second I had in the Navy and with the Marine Corps. And the only reason I stopped was because I was seeing all these capable and competent men and women that I served with just struggle to find purpose in civilian life. And like most Americans, we're so busy with the day-to-day that we don't have time to do anything other than put our kids to sleep, go to bed, wake up the next day, go to work, do it over again. And you're just trying to make it through life. And I remember being the same way, being so busy. And, except until that one day in the mall when I shared with you that it literally dropped me to my knees when one of my friends lost both of his legs in Iraq. And that's when I turned to Rachel and I said, we have to do something. And here I went from being this one guy that was always worried about, my life, my career, what am I going to do tomorrow to, selling everything. And Rachel and I sold our house and cashed out our retirement and savings plan and started Workshops for Warriors. And it's hard to make that step. I'm not asking everyone to do that. And I know that we all have to do our own thing. But I think one of the things that people don't realize is that we have to build a plan. We have to do something. And I think we talked about earlier, vision without funding is hallucination. I know that President Biden now has this new infrastructure bill, which it's desperately needed to revitalize American manufacturing. However, it's built upon this kind of incorrect assumption that there's this trained workforce out there that has just kind of been loitering, waiting for employment. And I don't think it's caught up to reality that there are 720,000 unfilled jobs due to lack of skilled labor. So the cornerstone for that plan is a nationally scalable training program. And I think that Workshops for Warriors is that nationally viable, nationally scalable training program. We've been doing that since 2008. Now we're ready to expand. 350 times bigger than we were before, almost 1,000 graduates. 94% of our graduates are placed and retained in full-time jobs. The average starting salary for our graduates is $60,000 a year after 16 weeks of accelerated training at our school. So how do you go from here? And we're in the midst of a $15 million expansion program that will triple our throughput and allow the school to become self-sufficient. And then we are in the midst of a $148 million capital campaign that will enable us to train 20 times as many graduates as we do now. And that will enable us to go throughout the nation, because you need instructors to train at students at different schools that have not yet been prepared, armed with Mastercam and using some of the best machines out there from Haas Automation and others, and with sandbag tooling. You can retool American manufacturing with veterans. I'd love to figure out how it is that you and I can make people kind of snap up, take notice, and be like, oh, okay, yes, this is how I can engage. This is how I can move forward. If you had any ideas, I'd love to hear that.
I mean, I've always got ideas. And again, we're doing, a lot of things locally, just getting in contact with our local schools, because I think it's a two-pronged approach. You have to create the training school, but you have to figure out a way to get people interested in going, and I know that, you guys are having no issues getting those student seats filled. I know you're turning people away at this point because there's so many people that are interested, but I mean, think about if this was scalable on a national level. Think about it if it was all over the place. I mean, making sure that we've got people ready to take those training courses, I think, is step one. And I'll tell you, it is never too early. I mean, we've got Girl Scouts coming into our office, ages of 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, just to give them exposure and give them an idea of what the opportunities are out there. Because I think without that understanding, it's just something that people don't even consider as a career.
I completely agree with you. And I think part of that is that America has kind of been gliding along on this manufacturing training program or system that in effect was turned off 80 years ago after World War II. And we're only now realizing the impacts of that. And again, without going into history, we were really surviving or coasting along on this inertia that was given to us after World War II. And I think what we need from a kind of a national level is these nationally recognized credentials. I know that when people go through our training program, which is 16 weeks long, 5 days a week, 9 hours a day, they leave here with nationally recognized credentials from Mastercam, from SolidWorks, from NIMS, NC3. These are nationally recognized credentials that you can take anywhere with you. That's one of the things that I struggle with. If you don't have nationally recognizable credentials and experiences that can go throughout the US, you're constantly having to prove yourself and revalidate yourself. How important to you is it? I mean, have you seen a strong demand signal for those Mastercam certs for people when they go throughout the nation to try and get new jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having that certification, the accreditation, it's just an immediate signal that you're ready to jump in and you don't need to be trained, because let's face it, training is expensive, and these manufacturing shops, they don't have the time nor the resources to train somebody to get them up and running. They need to be able to hire someone that can walk into their shop and immediately start running that machine, because time is money for them. And so, I think it's up to people like us to figure out ways to get those, to get those employees trained, whether that's workforce development, partnering with different schools. I think there's a lot of ways to do that. But yeah, I mean, I think in general, though, manufacturing, no matter where you are in the country, no matter where you are in the world, it's the same language. It's the same skills, it's the same, it's the same process. And so I think it's really just getting them involved in manufacturing and getting them interested in the industry in the first place.
You say this as one of the very few women leaders and CEOs in the manufacturing space, let alone in the regular space. How do you deal with, most of the manufacturing CEOs are not female. They are not particularly, they're closer to 70 than they are to 20. And how do you deal in this new world where I think they might not even realize that the world is changing around them? How do you get them to wake up? What's that clarion call that we can share with people to say, hey, listen, the world is moving, the world is changing, you need to move along with it? What have you done to make people realize that?
It's funny, I get asked that question, and I think the biggest thing is I try to lead by example. I guess I try to ignore the fact that I'm a female in a male dominated industry, and I focus less on that and more on what can I do, personally, to be able to make change? What can I do that kind of influences the people that are around me? And it becomes this domino effect. It's, you have influence on one person, and then that person influences someone else, and it kind of, it's like this, it just kind of trickles down. But I think in general, you talked a little bit about the fact that we're, things are changing, and we got to get on board with that. And I think that's a really important fact, that we're in this very pivotal moment in manufacturing where we're kind of passing the baton from one generation to the next. It's happening in a lot of companies. I mean, my father passed the company over to me 6 years ago. So the next generation is leading CNC Software. I've seen many other companies where that is happening. Our resellers are kind of making that transition. And that's happening in the workforce as well. And I don't think it's happening as fast as it should be. We need more momentum and more speed in which that next generation steps into manufacturing, but it's going to happen. And the reason it's going to happen is because manufacturing is so exciting. It's, I get this incredible opportunity to talk to different companies that are using Mastercam, and the things that they're doing with it, the innovation, the forward movement, the impact that it has on our country and on our world is tremendous. And so, there is going to be a groundswell, but I think we can't let up on our momentum. We can't let up on our, desire and need to be able to get the message out there. And I think, the more we do this, the more that message is going to be perpetuated by people that hear it, and so on and so forth. So, it's funny. It's again, I think, a two-pronged approach. We've got to do the top down, but I also think the community level, that grassroots, that kind of guerrilla marketing is probably going to be even more impactful when it comes to really selling manufacturing, because it's a mutually beneficial industry. It's, employees get to be part of something that are bigger than they are. And that's what I love about manufacturing. But on the other hand, being in this industry improves your quality of life. It just does. It provides an opportunity to connect with purpose. It provides an opportunity to connect with people. And at the end of the day, you get to spend 8 hours of your day or 10 hours of your day or whatever it is doing something amazing.
I I couldn't agree more with what you said. And again, for our viewers that are out there, it's really easy to remember that, manufacturing companies make either software that moves big, heavy metal things normally, but they're big, inanimate things, right? Or software that drives those big, inanimate things. But the end product of that is really impactful. And I think I've shared with you once before at one of our board meetings that I remember my wife Rachel and I were having a particularly bad year in 2015 or so, and we were looking at them. We were going, what do we do? And we were so down. I remember, and this one guy came in, and here's this guy, James, 8-year Marine Corps combat veteran that just was struggling, and here he was, honorably discharged guy, and all of a sudden he's alone, single, unemployed, and living in his car with his 3-year-old son, Sammy. And here's this tough guy, combat vet, that for the first time in his life, he feels fear. And not because of bullets or not physical fear, but terrified because he doesn't know how he's gonna feed his 3-year-old son, has no fuel in his car, has $2 to his name, and here's this guy that is literally on the brink, and then he finds Workshops for Warriors. And at the end of 16 weeks of accelerated training with housing paid for, tuition, childcare, all meals, and software from your company, right? He's now making $60,000 a year. And that is so transformative, not just as an employee, but here's James that he's got hope again. Here's this honorably discharged veteran that is now contributing to society, paying taxes, and you're not even thinking about his 3-year-old Sammy. Sammy's now like, oh wow, he's in his own bed. For the first time, he's got a bed in their own house. That is such an emotional event for James and Sammy that you don't even think about. And manufacturing had a direct impact on that night. And I'm confident that James will be able to leverage all the skill sets the Marine Corps gave him, that sense of discipline, the drug-free attitude, the ability to work well with others, that team focus, and continue to build on that and become a really valued employee wherever he goes. And that's why I keep coming back to the fact that you made this decision to help Workshops, to donate that software, to help us with training. And that was one of the 50 things you did that day, right? But you did that and you continue doing that. I'm trying to figure out with all these different people that I speak with, what is it that's inside of them that made them go, hey, I've got 50 things to do today. That sounds important. We need to help. And I'm going to connect other people. And how do we get other people that are listening to this to go, enough sitting on the sideline. I'm going to do something. Either I'm going to donate money or I'm going to connect them to someone. What is it that that's why I'm looking for that missing, that spark that is in you, that's in Jim Hoffman, that's in Jeff Immelt. What is it? I'm trying to find that out.
I don't think it's any one spark. I think everybody has their own spark. And again, that's what's great about manufacturing is that there's always something that you can pull from it that's relevant for anybody. My son, actually, he's been really big into surfing and sailing. We've been spending some time out by the ocean. And so he actually just had to do a project for school and he designed a surfboard and then the inner ribs using Mastercam. He's 9 years old, and him and my dad went down to the workshop and they cut it out. And was he interested in manufacturing and designing and building? I don't think initially, but he was interested in surfing and he was interested in sailing. And so that was his in. And I think, you got to find what people relate to. And, for me, I'll be honest, it was family that did it for me. And not just the fact that my dad started the company or the fact that my uncle was in it or, the fact that my mom and my aunts, it was very much a family business. And for me, family is synonymous with manufacturing, but it's so much bigger than that. I have this just absolute passion for the fact that when you join the manufacturing industry, and I think about that story about the veteran that, he goes from this pack of soldiers, this family, and when he gets out, he's on his own, right? And so it's not just about the fact that he was able to find Workshops for Warriors and get connected to another family. It's that Workshops for Warriors was a conduit to a long-term family, this manufacturing industry, because there's just something about this industry where it's not about selling products, it's not about the technology, it's not about any of that. It's about the connection, the human connection. And that, for us, we don't sell a product, we sell a relationship. And that is validated by a number of people that I consider my family. I consider to be friends and family that I've known for 30 years, and I wouldn't have known them without manufacturing. And so for me, the spark was that I get to be connected to these amazing people that have the same interests, the same passion, and the same desire to do something great for the world. And so, I think everybody has to figure out what it is that connects them to that, whether it's, I'm interested in playing guitar and I know that Taylor Guitar is a Mastercam customer, or it's because I'm interested in race cars and I know that, Stuart Haas Racing uses Mastercam. It's those kinds of things. It's how do you connect that to something that you're already interested in and you're already passionate about?
You brought up a couple of great points, actually. And I think that's one of the, you said everyone should have this spark. I think you nailed it. I think it was that connection, that kind of civic responsibility. I'm a naval officer, so I kind of feel that every American needs to serve, but you definitely have that, right? From what you're sharing with me, it's that civic responsibility, that kind of moral obligation to help our society be better than we left it. And you also brought up another thing, which is family. But within that family thing, you brought up another thing, which was unintentionally or not, you had access to software and equipment and competent trained people. And that's one of the things that I can't stress enough for America. If we don't have locations throughout the United States, like at Workshops for Warriors, like at city colleges, wherever it is, it doesn't matter. But you need to have the ability for kids, teenagers, adolescents, at-risk youth, single moms, you name the demographic, but a place where there is an opportunity to either have access to high technology. Because with Mastercam, you can cut on a mill, on a lathe, on a laser, on a 3D printer. And like my daughter, right, when she was little, 5 years old, she said, "Dad, I want a dolly for my car." And Rachel said, "Go to the shop." And we went to the shop and we literally used Mastercam. We cut out some pieces of stainless steel, and then she did a dirty little welding on it because it looked horrible, but it worked, right? We built this little dolly for her car, and she was thrilled at 5 years old. And now she's drawing and making things. Giving people access to that, I think, is not only important to spark their creativity, but it's to make sure that the spirit of innovation in America continues to burn brighter and grow larger. And that's one of my biggest concerns is America is no longer number one in manufacturing in the world. And nobody in America, especially those people that are a little bit more competitive, like being number two. So this is an opportunity for us to reclaim that mantle. And if we're using computer numerically controlled equipment, it's a way of doing it in an environmentally and socially responsible manner. And we need that if we want to be economically, socially, and militarily independent. Because if not, we're at risk of doing that. And this is one of those opportunities for making sure that happens, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. Creativity, innovation, it's a muscle, right? I mean, and if you don't use it, you lose it. And I think it's so important that we are kind of perpetuating that idea, or that, that basic knowledge to the next generation of how amazing creativity and innovation can be. I mean, that story that you just said about your daughter, that is the exact, if you dream it, you can do it. She dreamt of the idea of having a dolly, and she was able to do it. And I think giving them that knowledge that it's possible is, that's step one into kind of getting them excited about a career potentially in manufacturing, or finding a way to be connected to it. That's one of the other big things, is that you talk about manufacturing and people immediately just think about machinists or welders, but the number of jobs or career sets or skills that are available that are connected to manufacturing are endless. Just in our company alone, we've got somewhere over 20 different departments, 20 different kinds of people that are working together to make something happen.
Actually, that's yet another thing that you hit on, right? There's no industry in America that creates more jobs than manufacturing. So in the military, we say for every guy or gal in the field, like for every tip of the spear, you have 20 support people that support that person out in the field. Manufacturing does the same thing. For every manufacturing job, it creates 20 other jobs to support that one manufacturing job. So if America and government and maybe our leaders help either subsidize aerospace, more shipbuilding, it's going to unintentionally create this virtuous cycle of more manufacturing, which in turn will create this nationally scalable training pipelines or demand and funding for it. So that you can send people out and kind of rebuild America's manufacturing force, not only with veterans, but with other groups of people. It's not, we want everyone together to help push America forward. I'm just saying American veterans are the vanguard because we've got 1 million that are leaving in the next 5 years, but we have high schoolers, we have elementary school kids, we have vocational training schools. They normally take anywhere from 2 to 6 years to bear fruit, whereas veterans are job ready right now. But that's one of the things that I think people don't realize. You need to subsidize that. That's my other big concern is growing up in Europe, the US, you see that the US is the only first world nation that does not subsidize their vocational training programs, either directly or indirectly. Every other civilized or modern nation in the world that's manufacturing related provides vocational training stipends, vacation stipends, stipends for young families to start, vacations, housing, you name it. The US does not at all. So how can you compete on an even footing when the people that we're expecting to build our rockets don't have any of the background that the people in Europe have, for example, or Japan or Taiwan or China?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I kind of relate it to a concept in manufacturing called design for manufacturing. Mm-hmm. And you can come up with a million different designs, but if the machine can't cut it, then you can't really turn that into reality. And I think that sort of relates to this infrastructure plan a bit, where I think it's a great plan, but if you don't have the right tool to execute on it, then that's all it is kind of this plan or an idea, and it doesn't become reality. And you're right, training is the cornerstone. That's step one to making sure that execution actually happens, because if we don't have people that are available to step into those jobs that are being created, then then how do we get to that end game? How do we figure out how to actually execute on that plan? So yeah, I mean, I think there are some dependencies to making sure that we get to that end game, and training and making sure that we have the right workforce in place to be able to make those happen is step one.
I agree. And just again, for the people that are watching, what's probably the number one complaint that you get from employers or companies when they're trying to build a new product or get bigger?
That they don't have enough workers. That they just don't have the workforce. And I'll tell you the other thing, and that's one of the other reasons why I was so excited to support Workshops for Warriors and be part of this, is that you have also done a great job making sure that the skilled workers that are coming out of this training program also have those soft skills in place, because that is one of the other big complaints that I get from customers. It's that sometimes they can find workers, but they just don't have the soft skills. They aren't showing up on time. They aren't dedicated. There are so many pieces to that. And so Workshop for Warriors in general has put out skilled workers into the manufacturing industry that show up to their jobs on time. They're consistently promoted because they do such a wonderful job. And it's just been amazing to see.
Well, I wish I could take credit for that, but that would be completely incorrect. To our credit, the Department of Defense only accepts about 1% of Americans that are actually eligible to join the Department of Defense. And the Workshops for Warriors only takes honorably discharged men and women, as well as transitioning men and women that are within 6 months of their end of their military service. So we're literally getting the cream of the crop of America's talent, and we're converting this like river of gold into little gold bullions that people throughout the nation value and use in their internal companies. So we're very, very fortunate to be dealing with transitioning service members and veterans. And like you said, they are so pumped and ready for a new mission in life. All they need is training, right? And they're willing to do that. They are really excited and energized about starting a new career and serving in a different capacity. And all that we do here at Workshops for Warriors is provide that accelerated training. And once again, thanks to you and your company that are helping us think about it, helping us focus more on getting them the right training and putting them into careers versus having to pay for a software program, which would enable us to, we wouldn't be able to move forward. So you and your company have been a force multiplier. I really, personally and professionally, I'm really grateful to you.
Well, like I said, it's my pleasure. It's CNC Software's pleasure, Mastercam's pleasure. It's a win-win. You know, it kind of solves everybody's problem. And, you know, the people that are coming out of Workshops for Warriors and their programs end up becoming our customers down the road. And, you know, again, we get to start building that relationship with them very early on, so that they know that at the end of the day, Mastercam has their back, and Mastercam is there, you know, not just to get the job done, but to improve their quality of life. And I'm humbled that I get the opportunity to be connected to something so big. It's just a pretty fun place to be.
That's awesome. And again, if you're listening, please go to mastercam.com or go to wfw.org to learn more about either Mastercam or Workshops for Warriors. And we'd love to hear more about you. And I think we're going to take some questions. Keisha, if you want to ask, unless Megan, you have something else?
No.
They're great. Great discussion. Thank you both, Hernán and Megan. So I do have a few questions here. And Hernán, I'm going to start with you. So I am a Marine Corps veteran, and you shared a story about James and Sammy, and there's thousands out there. And over the last 4 years, I've seen hundreds of success stories come out of Workshops for Warriors. So what are your plans for Workshops for Warriors in the future? And do you expect to expand anywhere else across the nation?
So that's probably the number one question we get. And the answer to that is yes, we're going to expand. And to give you an idea, right, there's 720,000 unfilled jobs. So just with the 720,000 unfilled jobs right now, as we expand and we do this $148 million expansion, which would get us to 20 times the number of graduates per year that we currently are able to train, it would take 770 schools 10 years to provide that deficit. And that's assuming that everyone that's currently employed doesn't leave. So to give you an idea of how big that is. So the number one job for Workshops for Warriors is like the Marine Corps' number one job. Be most ready when the nation is least ready. So Workshops for Warriors is designed to be a train the trainer facility or an instructor training facility, in addition to providing employees for other manufacturers out there. But the key goal is to have Workshops for Warriors start 103 other schools that will be staffed by instructors that have been trained and kind of, you know, inculcated in the Workshops for Warriors way to help train all the people that America needs. The easiest way forward is funding.
Great. Thank you, Hernán. Megan, so with the company as large as Mastercam, how have you all kept up with all of the new technologies and innovations throughout manufacturing as far as training your employees and expanding over the years?
That's an excellent question. And I would say it's a daily struggle. It's, you know, the innovation and the technology, it's changing so fast. The best thing that we can do is be connected. You know, again, it's that human connection. It's building relationships with other people in the industry so that we have kind of that firsthand knowledge of what's coming and what are the big trends that we need to see. You know, training for my employees is something that, you know, we have a budget every year that we set aside for training, and we make sure that our employees have access to that so that they're constantly staying up on new trends. And again, we talked about it earlier, creativity, innovation, learning, it's a muscle. It's a muscle memory that you have to keep using. And so, you know, we very much encourage continued education and training in all of those areas. And then I think that the last piece of it is we utilize a lot of new technology. I mean, particularly in the last year and a half with, you know, the pandemic being what it was, you know, we rely on the technology to be able to connect with people all over the world virtually. And we were so fortunate to have those tools in place when everything shut down. I mean, it was 2 days and we had our entire staff working remotely. It was, you know, not even a hiccup, and everybody was productive and safe, which to me is the most important thing. It's safety first, it's family first. And then, you know, being able to use those technologies to keep us connected.
Thank you, Megan. Hernán, can you talk to the audience a little bit about COVID, how it's impacted not only manufacturing, but also Workshops for Warriors, how you continue to train over 115 graduates over 2020, and how you've continued to make sure that veterans and transitioning service members are earning the nationally recognized credentials here at Workshops for Warriors?
Well, I think the number one thing that I'd say is I'd like to thank the Department of Defense again for giving us this training, because they always say improvise, adapt, and overcome. And at the time, our chief of staff, which was Jim Grooney, retired colonel, was very, very helpful in moving us forward. And I'd say he was instrumental in doing this, because we shut down on Friday at noon. We got all the leadership into my office here, and we thought about what is it that we could do that was legal, safe, ethical, and pushed us forward in a way that kept our staff and students safe. And we quickly figured it out. We had a plan in action, and by Monday we were operational again. And we didn't have a single case of COVID until the day of graduation in December, when all of a sudden we had like a 3 people outbreak. And by that time we had graduated and everyone left for 2 weeks, everything was fine. And I'd attribute that to Jim, our staff here, and the students that all wore masks, washed their hands, and were really, really mindful. They listened, they did what they did what they were supposed to do. And they, again, exemplified that they're willing to serve and they're willing to put their egos on hold for a greater good. So I'm really grateful to them for that.
Thank you, Hernán. So question from the audience, Hernán, how do you place your students in jobs after graduation from Workshop for Warriors?
So we have job fairs about 1 month before we graduate students. So classes are 4 months long, 5 days a week, 9 hours a day. 1 month before graduation, we'll invite companies like SpaceX, Tesla, Boeing, Reliance Steel and Aluminum, Ford Motor Company, a who's who of America's Fortune 500. And we have the employers set up tables, 18 to 20 tables, almost like speed dating. And every 15 minutes, students will rotate and they'll go to different stations. And at the end, students have anywhere from 5 to 10 written job offers that average $60,000 a year starting salaries. So imagine that peace of mind that comes when you're going through a program and 1 month before you graduate, you have the written document that says, SpaceX is proud to offer you a job of X dollars per hour starting, a week after you graduate. And that it's been incredibly helpful. It's been a little back and forth with different employers because they're not normally used to having to show up at a job fair with written job offers, but they've quickly realized if they don't show up with a written job offer, like another employer is just going to snatch everyone else up.
Thank you, Hernán. So Meghan, as Hernán has mentioned, we've had a great relationship with Mastercam, and every single one of the alumni have benefited from training in Mastercam over the years. So from this conversation, you obviously feel Workshops for Warriors is very important, and you've shared that. Moving forward, and from this event, one, what do you think the attendees that are listening to this today, what do you want them to take away from this? And how do you think that they can assist Workshops for Warriors moving forward and sharing their mission?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of different answers to that. I think in terms of what do I want you to walk away with and how can you support Workshop for Warriors? I think number one, walk away with the understanding that you own your destiny, that, don't wait for somebody else to, clear the path for you. Don't wait for somebody else to let you know what your opportunities are. I think you have to go out and find them. But that being said, I also think it's important that we all own the problem, which is, finding more skilled workers in manufacturing, or providing a way for us to be able to create those workers. And so, it's what can you do within your community, even if it's something small. I mean, think about if every single one of us that's in this industry does something small to expose it to that next generation, or to create that familiarity, or to give them an understanding of the opportunities, what kind of an impact that would be. I mean, we're so much stronger together. And so in terms of supporting workshops for warriors, I mean, Hernán is the right person to ask, but I would say donate, get the word out, let people know that it's there. I mean, it's a program that's running, it's effective, and it's solving so many problems for us. Like I said, they're doing the heavy lifting. I'm just really appreciative and grateful that we get to help support them.
I would definitely, so thank you, Megan. I agree. Mine is super easy, funding, right? There's the only reason that we're not moving forward faster is because we don't have additional funding. We have another, I think I told you, $15 million expansion program that already started. We have all the properties acquired. Demolition starts in November. And if funded quickly, we can have another 6 classrooms online and triple our throughput by December of this year. So again, 14 months from now, we'd be tripling the amount of people that we're putting through the program. So, for every $25,000 scholarship, that produces someone that makes an average of $60,000 a year. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit. 87% of all monies go straight to training programs. We're Charity Guide Star Platinum certified. We have a score of 100 on Guide Star. So look us up. We have great financials. Never had an issue with our audited financials, and everything that we do is to push forward and program, get people into advanced manufacturing jobs throughout America. And funding is the critical path forward for us.
Hernán, obviously manufacturing looks very different from what it did in 2008 when you started Workshops for Warriors. Can you talk a little bit about that, where you are today, and then in the future, what your plans are as far as classes and training goes for Workshops for Warriors?
So it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was that different. I think that there was, like we said, a staggering lack of vision kind of brought us to where we are right now. Very early on, we recognized that by using Mastercam, it was the thought process that was the most important thing, because Mastercam was going to evolve and improve and incorporate different things, which it has, right? But the idea is, how do you get people to understand that we're transitioning from a manual machining environment where you have one machinist making one part on one machine with one tool, to leveraging Mastercam, for example, where you're now putting, making a machine that has maybe 20 vices on it, that has 80 parts on it, that has 120 tool carousel on it. So you can set that machine up and it can run unattended for 38 hours. And then the parts from that can go somewhere else, or doing robotic integration into that and leveraging technology, automation, and machines to do things that either people don't want to do, or too dangerous, or just boring or monotonous for humans to do, and leveraging people's intellect far more than their hands, right, or shoulders. I think that is kind of the inflection point that America is undergoing. And the challenge that it's hard to have all those things in one spot. It's hard to have the technology, the software, the space, the equipment, the tooling, the instructors, the overhead to make all these things happen, which is why it's so important to have people like Megan and Mastercam and Haas Automation and Reliance Steel and Aluminum and Model Lasers and Scotchman, right, be so selfless with their time and talent and treasure and products. Because if you don't have all these items meshed together, it's like somebody giving you one wheel on a Tesla and saying, go to LA, right? You need to have all the wheels and the motor and the vehicle and the steering wheel. You need to have that whole ecosystem operational before it can function. And I'm not going to say the manufacturing wasn't like that before. It just wasn't widely available, and it wasn't available to the masses. And if you have Mastercam available to the masses by putting that in junior highs and high schools and vocational training schools, and we do a program here called Love Like a Girl, where you teach 6 to 18-year-old girls how to weld, and then we have a Love Like a Woman Girl class, which is 18-year-olds and up. You need to give people access to that whole ecosystem to spark their creativity, because then they're going to start manufacturing things in ways that you never even expected. And that's what we're trying to do. We just need to give them the safe environment, the skill sets, the tools, and the ability to kind of explore and use that as a launching pad to move forward. And that's what Mastercam's done for America.
Great, thank you. Hernán, you have a question from the chat. What new business partners or relationships, if any, are you thinking about bringing to workshops at this time?
Business relationship. Well, in a perfect world, which again rarely happens, but thus far, I'm hopeful that it will in the future. Ideally, you want somebody that looks at us with kind of enlightened self-interest. They realize that by helping Workshops for Warriors, it will not only help, by helping workshops, by training veterans, it helps America, that veteran, and their company's bottom line. So that's what helping Workshops for Warriors does. So if you have someone with enlightened self-interest that they want to help fund the expansion of Workshops for Warriors, or maybe provide scholarships so we can get people through the program. An ideal business relationship would be like Reliance Steel and Aluminum, for example. They donate selflessly every year a lot of money and material, because everything we manufacture is cut out of steel or aluminum. And Reliance Steel and Aluminum provides both of those to Workshops for Warriors. We also use cutting tools and money, because you can't pay instructors or you can't pay utilities or the electricity bill with a piece of steel, right? So they provide parts, consumables, and money. So the ideal business relationship would have a mix where you have this win-win relationship where they donate money to help support the school, maybe help with a wing or a product or construction project that's going on, help with mentoring opportunities for some of our graduates, maybe hire some of our graduates, because you have to show that ecosystem. You have to show the life cycle of the young gal, the single mom maybe that comes through Workshops for Warriors and doesn't have a way out, doesn't know what to do until she finds workshops, and we're able to provide childcare and housing and food, thanks to different scholarships or different companies that were able to provide different facets of the training that she needed. And then maybe she goes to work for Reliance Steel and Aluminum, and then after 2 years, she's doing really well, and now she's in a management level position. We need to create that marketing story to make them understand, hey, thanks to Reliance, this happened, but like we say, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a manufacturing community to create these great outcomes. We just need to do a better job of sharing them and have people that are more selfless doing that.
Great, Hernán. Thank you. Meghan, we got time for one more question before I turn it back over to Hernán for closing remarks. It's straight from the audience, and they would like to know what's been the most rewarding experience about your relationship with Workshops for Warriors.
I think probably just the idea that this is one of my opportunities to give back. We've got men and women that are joining, the United States military and going out and, knowing that they might make the ultimate sacrifice. And for me to be able to provide an opportunity for when they get home to be able to successfully transition to civilian life and not just make that transition, but end up with a long-term opportunity to join the manufacturing family. I mean, that's, to me, that's the most rewarding part. I mean, I've had a lot of family members that have been in the military. My Uncle Dave was in the Marines, and he actually lost his leg back in Afghanistan a long time ago. And, it does not, I understand what it takes, and so to be able to give back is, it is rewarding. And it's, again, knowing that they're joining a community and joining this industry. And I did notice a question about Mastercam joining a larger network and a larger company. And I have to tell you, it's something that I'm just so excited about. Mastercam, we've always considered ourselves a family. And I've mentioned that several times throughout this conversation, that manufacturing is about the networking, it's about the relationships, and it's about the ability to focus on what you do well and partner with people that do what they do well. And so that's kind of our opportunity to do that. Connecting to a bigger family allows us to innovate with people that have the same passion, that have the same approach to manufacturing, where it's customer first, it's experience first. And so I think, to kind of bring that full circle, it's Workshops for Warriors is a conduit. It's an ability to give back to the community, and it's an ability to, show off this industry that I love so much.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Meghan. Thank you all for a great conversation. Thank you to the audience for great questions. Hernán, I am going to hand it back over to you for closing remarks.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Keisha. We've talked before that America is at this critical moment for manufacturing and our nation's safety. And America is very vulnerable economically, socially, and militarily. And this is our opportunity as Americans, as business owners, as citizens, as taxpayers, to do something. We don't have to sit idly by. And I've noticed it just looking out, that it's almost as if we're in this sinking ship and people are complaining about or bickering over what color cups we're going to use to bail out the boat. And I'm just saying, just grab any, just grab any and start dewatering. And that's kind of how I feel about manufacturing, that there's such a simple solution out there, you know, using Mastercam, using Haas equipment, using what it is, or going through workshops for it, whatever it is, just proceed, right? Move forward with that plan of action. If you have a better plan, great, proceed, move forward, just do something, because inaction is terrible at this moment. And action is what America needs. We need to move forward in a cohesive, unified way. And one of the things that I've learned a lot through this is, you know, all of us are better than one of us. And it doesn't have to be, you know, my idea doesn't have to be the best idea. You do things better than I do. I'll do some things better than you, but leverage our talents and help our nation, help our community, help our veterans, and we're going to help everyone. We can do this in a way that really benefits humanity. I always say that 150 years from now, people are going to look back and they're going to see that Workshops for Warriors was the birthplace for America's green manufacturing renaissance. And I'd really love Americans to think about that. Think about what is it that you're doing today that 150 years from now is going to positively impact our nation and our world. And if you work with that in mind, I think you'll see your daily decisions will change slightly in their trajectory. And over time, that's going to make a huge course correction for our nation. That's going to make us, I think, a better nation, a more just nation, and one that is a shining beacon to humanity. That's really what I hope. So, Meghan, anything that you'd like to share?
No, I think you wrapped it up great. I mean, I think that is a really important thing. And, you know, I think about manufacturing and its potential for this country in the future. And, you know, we've become a very divided nation, but manufacturing has the ability to bring us together. And I think if we all focus on one small thing that we can contribute to the solution, you know, again, we have an opportunity to really come together and do some great things. And it's an industry that I'm passionate about, that I'm excited about. And I genuinely hope that we can really bring people together and bring more people into it.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Meghan, so much for your time. Again, thank you for your selflessness and generosity over the years. And thank you for everyone watching for attending the event. And if you're interested in learning more about Workshops for Warriors, then join us. Join Workshops for Warriors and Rebuilding America's Manufacturing Force. Join us at wfw.org, or visit us or email me at info@wfw.org. Thank you so much for your time, and God bless you all. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.